Chapter 6. Core of the Bow. The Bones of the Hawk.
Capítulo 6. Núcleo del arco. Los huesos del halcón. Now, step by step, we will discover together how I came up with all these numbers. Choose 2 thick pieces. You want to make 2 identical in length and thickness stakes. Remember, these need to be 120 centimeters / 47 inches and 1/4 of an inch long. That is the ideal length for bamboo to work properly. If it was much shorter, it would have the risk of breaking. If it was longer, its power would significantly drop because it wouldn't get the needed tension when pulled. With a well-performing bamboo bow, you can use the short draw technique without losing much force. That opens the gate for speed shooting. The length is not that strict, but may vary, but only slightly, depending on each crafter's body measurements. To match the 2 thicknesses and cut 2 identical pieces, you have to independently craft the first one. Cut it into the desired length. I'm using a cheap small handsaw, but you can also use any knife. All you have to do is slice a ring around the bamboo. Then you can easily break it by applying force. But if you want, you can keep sawing to cut it smoothly. What's really important is to make that first sliced ring, to break the strong outer shell and fibers. Otherwise, if you try to cut it from one side, like normal wood, it tends to split and ruin your bamboo piece. If you end up using a knife, then use this technique. I learned it by my Quechua Inca friends while making bamboo instruments. With your index finger placed under the stake, push upward. With your thumb, press towards the bamboo. The 2 opposite forces will give you enough pressure to slice that deep ring around. Watch out because it's easy to miss closing the circle, and you will end up making a spiral. If that happens, just correct the cutting path and continue. Then slide the first completed piece across the length of the longer bamboo until you see that both pieces match each other. Then by using the first piece, mark the longer one and cut its 1 or 2 extensions from both sides. Now you have a copy of the first one. I like to smooth out the extending fibers by rubbing them together. To completely smooth them out, you can use anything available. Certainly, it's better to have a set of files and sandpaper, but if you can't find any, then you can even use some kitchen steel scrubbing scourers or even a rock. Be resourceful and invent what works best for you. Smooth out the sharp edges too. You don't want them ruining your string later on. It's time to strengthen our pieces even more. It's so simple. Just wrap them with transparent polypropylene tape. In the US, it's widely known as Scotch tape. Why, you will ask? While I was developing my own bulletproof plates, I studied the science behind ballistics. I'm crafting a composite multi-layered breastplate by using 3 key materials: ceramic, aramid fiberglass, and polyethylene. The strike face is the ceramic layer. Its molecular structure is harder than steel, but the harder something is, the lesser elasticity it has. So, as a paradox, it can break easily, but it's not pierced. Instead, it has to separate into 2 sides. By backing it up with aramid fabric layers using epoxy and resin, I return elasticity into the ceramic. So when the bullet hits it, there is no space for it to break. So the force is cancelled and returns whence it came, while the fiberglass is not pierced because it is shielded by the hard ceramic. As a last layer, I'm using the even softer and more elastic polyethylene plastic sheets to delaminate, neutralize vibrations, and catch any possible debris if the bullet penetrates the second layer. If each layer stands alone, the bullet will easily pass through, but together they create a bulletproof compound. The same logic can be applied on bamboo. The ceramic strike face is the strong outer shiny shell and the fibrous walls. They are hard and can break if not backed up with something more elastic. Scotch tape holds the fibers in place and does not allow any space for them to break. It also works as sinew. It becomes an extra muscle and forces our bamboo to return to its original shape faster after we release an arrow. To state the obvious, the faster our bow returns to its original shape, the stronger our shot becomes. And the foam inside the bamboo acts as the third layer and neutralizes vibrations that could break hard materials. Wrap the entire length of both pieces, completely cover it, and do not leave any spaces. With each turn, Step on the half of the previous wrap. Overlap your tape to hold itself with every step. Slightly pull it to apply pressure on the stake, but don't overdo it, otherwise it will weaken and get extended to exhaustion. You want your tape to retain its full elastic potential. This coating does not only strengthen your bamboo, but also fully protects it from the elements and damage. Continue by supergluing all four ends. Let those few drops spread and be absorbed within. That completely seals and waterproofs your pieces. You're finally ready to connect them. Hold them together. If both pieces are connected together with their thin and thick sides, then flip over one of them. Now they are facing opposite to each other. Grab one of the thin ends and extend it up 1 finger length distance in comparison to the thick bottom. I'm using my index finger, but I am a giant, so if you have small hands, go ahead and use your thumb instead. Remember, it has to be designed on your own body measurements. Use some tape to hold that end together. Aim at exactly the border line of the thick bottom, or at least a little lower. Let it be strong and precise, so stay at the thickness of the tape and don't move it lower. Rub it around both pieces at least 5 times. Before mirroring this process onto the other side, first let's firmly secure this end. You can use all kinds of materials. Examples: zip ties, wool, hemp, and plastic ropes. I prefer to use woven plastic rope because it's very light and extremely durable and never loses its elastic properties. Also, it's completely waterproof. You can find these items either in stores with tools or handcrafts. The most common and most cheap plastic rope is a thin polypropylene type. I use it very often, but if I can find polyester, then I go for it. It's stronger and can withstand heat better. In general, any heavy-duty rope that is thin enough will do. Don't overdo it with thick paracord. You need it to be thin enough to be able to work with it. Now you will need some kind of elastic glue. Any glue will do as long as it is waterproof. To test if it is, just apply and spread some of it on a sheet of paper. Let it dry and let some drops of water on it. If it dissolves, then it won't do. My favorite types are contact cement and especially rubber adhesive glue, because in combination with superglue, it reacts and instantly dries up. I'll explain later how to use this trade trick. The glue stops the rope from sliding out of its proper place. You can tie the rope in many ways, but this is how I do it. Hold the taped area of your bamboo pieces in front of you and then apply a thin layer of your glue. Spread it around. The rope will be tied comfortably on the glue with no worries of it slipping. Don't cut it yet, just unravel it from its skin as you go. All these crafting rules apply for all the next steps, so remember them. Adjust the end of the rope to extend at least twice the length of all your 4 fingers. Simply because you need a proper handle to work with it. Most of the work will be done with the other end, where the skin is. Make a simple knot and then adjust this ring loop to be a little lower than the edge of the thick end. Have in mind that these pieces are moving independently when the bow bends. So this little space will make sure that the knot won't fall off the edge because it got pushed out. Hold this end of the rope down, parallel to the bow shaft. Pull its 2 ends to tighten the rope in place. Carefully with the longer rope, wrap it around the pieces and work it downward towards the long shaft. Step on the short side of the rope and bury it inside. That way the whole wrapping will hold itself in place. I'm not leaving any spaces in between. Don't be afraid to unwrap and try again if something goes wrong. Cover carefully the entire taped area and pull hard both sides of the rope. This will tighten the entire wrap. Do a simple knot with both ends. Pass the long rope around the bamboo one more time and finish it up by doing a double knot. It's a bit like sleight of hand. You may need to practice a bit to do it right. The only secret here is to manage and always hold tight the ropes so that they don't slide off. Cut both ends at the length of a finger and melt the extensions left with fire. Don't place the fire directly on them, but simply hold it close. This way you won't accidentally melt the rest of the rope. The heat of the match travels up, so make sure that nothing stands on top. All of the heating is done with the root of the fire. While the 2 ends are melted, push them down on the wrapped rope to seal it completely as one piece. If you didn't use plastic bonds, then use superglue for the same effect. There is no chance of it ever getting loose now. With your first side completely secured, you're ready to weave your two sticks together like a rope. Rotate both pieces towards the same direction and then cross them together at the opposite side. Repeat with every crossing. You will need to pass one reed above the other twice, so the sticks will cross each other 4 times. That is enough. Go ahead and secure the other end with tape. The reason you do not stop at fewer twists is because you want both extended ends to look towards the same side. They are meant to hold your string, so you do not want any obstacles in between. More twists will cause too much tension. Also, now your core shape gives attributes of a flat bow. That will give extra power to your shots. Note, the ideal is for both extended sticks to align with one another. But if they are on the side and opposite to each other, it's acceptable too, as long as the thick edges do not come in between. Tie up with rope the other side too. Same technique applies. It's time to understand how the loop of the string will sit on this type of bow. It sits on the corner between the two bamboo pieces and is held in place by the thin extension. But if we leave it as it is, then this might happen. It will dig its way in between the two pieces and it will ruin the rope knot. But even if it doesn't, then the friction made by the constant use is going to damage our fibers. So the best solution? A strong leather coating. Its smooth side works best with ropes because it is slippery with fibers and does not cause friction. If you can't afford to buy some, then you could scavenge it from old items. If you still can't find any, then you could use even folded cloth. If aesthetics don't matter to your situation, then the cheapest possible solution is electric tape. A good thick coating will do nicely. But leather can't be compared, especially for the use it is intended to have. I made 2 straps. Let them be at least 24 centimeters / 9.5 inches long, and a little less wide than the length of each extended bamboo stick. You will superglue them, so use the woolly looking side for the glue and let the smooth reflective side face outward. Hold the bow tip up and turn it to the side so that the extended piece looks down. Find the parallel middle imaginary line of the thin extending piece. Now find also the middle of the tied rope on that same line. Mark a dot there if you want. Grab your first leather strap and place its bottom left corner on that dot with its length extending up and away from the bow's length. Use the dot as an axis and treat that bottom left corner as being fixed there. Turn the strap to the left until its right side lines up with the corner made by the 2 bamboo extensions. Superglue the strap in place and firmly hold it there until the glue becomes solid. That's this step's starting point. It's better if you use a smooth plastic item to hold down things glued with superglue. If your skin is glued too, then aside from harming your skin, you will end up pulling the strap off again when you take your hand away. Leather sticks stronger with leather. It's best if you keep holding that first spot until the strap overlaps the starting point. Continue by applying superglue on the entire corner between the 2 sticks. Firmly cover the corner equally with the leather all the way to the other side. Just like that, the string's loop can't collapse in between the pieces anymore. With superglue you need to work fast. Apply superglue all around the extended bamboo and wrap your leather around it to cover its lower side. Then aim to align the thin piece's flat surface with your second wrap. Once again the same technique applies. Again overlap on the edges of your previous wrap to have your material hold itself better. Stop your second wrap once it reaches exactly the back side of the extension. At this point you should keep it tight for a minute to give the glue time to dry up. Now it gets a bit tricky. Move the strap down towards the bow's length until you meet the starting point. Glue it there. Then pull it to be parallel to the line made by the thick piece's surface. Wrap it around and match the thick surface's border line. Step by step, glue and walk it down until you have covered the rope under it. Because of the angle used to reach that point, a triangular spot will be left exposed. It will be covered with our finishing technique. As the strap comes from behind the bow tip, pull it down and face its woolly side. Mark a pointy angle with its longer side being near the bow's length. Cut it to be the same length as the wideness of the wrapped structure. Now superglue a path on the leather itself that passes above the wrapped layers and covers the buried starting point. Adjust its pointy tip to sit exactly parallel with the top line of the second wrapped layer. This way it will connect the pieces as one, and it won't get caught by something sharp that could rip and unravel it. Now squeeze the whole leather design to press everything together. At this point I like to pass every line with some superglue. It will make the piece immortal in time. You can use a glove, a plastic bag, or even an expendable painting brush to push the glue in the corners connecting each wrap. With this process we have protected all the previously exposed edges of the bow tip. Also look at what shape we have achieved. There is a convenient hook exactly where the loop needs to sit on. This will give us confidence that our string is completely secured in place. Copy the same process for the other end too, and our core is finished.